Welcome to Tower Gardening Made Easy, and I'm Sherry, and this is our weekly podcast called Let's Talk About It, because as gardeners, we have a lot to talk about. Well, today I've got a great show on deck, and I want to get started because it's going to be a full hour of lots of things that we need to answer. But most importantly, there was something that came up in the news that I want to dig right into. So stay tuned. Okay, welcome back. So this was all over social media and this was all over the news. Once again, we have another recall. And this one was at Walmart. So this comment was, check your fridge. Celery sticks sold at Walmart. They were recalled because of a potential listeria contamination. Well, I'm not going to get into the science of what listeria is, but clearly it's not good, and it's pulled from the Walmart shelves. Um, and this isn't just one. There are a lot of recalls. And I love the comment down below where someone says, why are people still shopping at the stores? Why aren't they just buying paper products and cleaning supplies? Well, she's got a really good point. So part of what we do as gardeners is we're growing our own produce. And whether you're soil-based or you're growing hydroponically or aeroponically, it's safer and it's healthier because we're not putting herbicides, pesticides, or any type of chemicals on the food. But let me just paint a picture for you. So food is grown all over the world, and I'm going to go at it from a different angle. So many years ago, I worked in Boston on Albany Street, which was the flower market. Now, the flower market is very similar to the produce market. So let me just paint you a real big picture here. In this building, it was the size of a football field, and they were little bays that people owned. And so what they were wholesalers. And so the florists like me would go in there and purchase their flowers for their week or a few days or whatever they were doing. But these flowers were grown all over the world. And so the people from each bay would then go to, say, Logan or Providence or wherever they were flown into. And they would pick them up in the refrigerated trucks. They would bring them back to Albany Street, and then they would stack them in the warehouses in their bays that were big, huge refrigeration compartments. Now, the produce is similar. It's the same thing. They're flying into a hub. Then the wholesalers go and they pick what they want, whether it's celery, peppers, all the fruits, anything. They go and they pick it up and then they bring it back to their place. Now, Walmart has hubs everywhere. So does the big box stores like the Costco's and the BJ's and other big grocery stores around here. We've got Stop and Shop and Whole Foods, places like that. So they go and then they put it out on their store shelves for retail. So again, when these places, whether it's not so much the wholesale, it's where they're being packaged, coming out of the field, they're processing it, packaging it, putting it into their bins, their refrigeration bins, and then it's being put onto a plane. And then it's being shipped. So what happens if it goes from one area and it's being pulled by a truck and the truck pulls over and it's not working? So the process from start to finish is very complicated. And by the time it gets to your cart, you're so busy because as in a society here, at least in America, we are a hurry up and wait, which means get out of the car, get the kids, get in the grocery store, and we're going down the aisles as fast as we possibly can, throwing stuff into our cart, not looking at labels, not looking at what we're buying. It's just, I don't have a lot of time. I need to feed my family and I got to get home or get back to work or whatever you're doing. But I think that this recall and all of the recalls I'm going to show you in a minute, I think it's cause for a pause. And what I mean by that is before you put something in your cart, especially if it's produce or vegetables or even meat or dairy, look at the labels. It's so important. Know where it's being grown. Now, I'm not going to get political, and I'm certainly not going to talk about politics here. But what I'm simply saying is that not all your food is grown in the US. So my challenge to you as maybe a small gardener is to have one thing in your backyard. Maybe it's soil-based, or you have one tower and you're growing variety of things on that tower. But really start to form a pattern where you're growing some of your own food. And so the picture down below of the celery is my celery. So when I saw this recall come through, I was like, well, I don't buy celery anymore. I just clip it off of my tower. And then because of the recall, I've actually thought about maybe I should plant some more and put it onto the top of another tower that I have, just so I make sure that I have enough. Now, I'm sure that the celery is going to be fine in a week or two when they replenish it, but how did it get there and why did they recall it? And how many people did it actually make into their fridge that they didn't see and they ate it and they got sick? So my challenge to you really is to start to grow your own produce, one container at a time, one tower at a time, but keep your family safe. Now I'm going to go into the next screen, which is I dug deep into this and I'm going to show you what's been recalled for produce over the past year. And that's only 12 months. And honestly, it's really scary. Okay, so stay safe, grow your own on a tower, on a container, in a container, I should say. So these are the recalls over the past 12 months. So we've got, let's dive into it here. Market side broccoli florets. Again, Walmart, big box store. And so this is their second one. Okay, and we'll get down the list. Maybe there's more. We know about the celery. Here's the next one. Fresh cucumbers, bell peppers, parsley, cilantro, jalapenos, another tomato. Walmart. Do we see a pattern here? Kroger's, another big box store. They're all over the place. I think they're nationwide. So again, it's coming from a packing place, and then it's being distributed into these, think about it, remember what I just said, these big, wholesale places, which then are distributed into retail. And we're buying them as consumers and getting sick. Problem. Big problem. So this is the next one, really got me. Bunny Love organic carrots. Let's stop at the word organic, because organic is supposed to be grown separately than other vegetables. It's supposed to have certain guidelines to it. And there shouldn't be a recall ever on organic because they're not using pesticides, they're not using herbicides, and they're supposedly not using chemicals. That's why it's organic. So, Bunny Love organic carrots, I think they have some explaining to do. All right, let's see. American Slicer cucumbers, various retailers. So that means they're everywhere. So how do we know? How do we know to look for if it's being recalled? So, all right, let's get to the next one. Organic, here we go. Organic, whole and baby carrots, Walmart, Target, Whole Foods. Whole Foods is supposed to be top of the chain in terms of healthy food, kind of farm to table, if you will. But is it? Trader Joe's. Honestly, I can say that I don't ever shop at Trader Joe's because out of all the recalls, they have the most, other than Walmart, apparently. Let's see, vegetable medley, carrots, broccoli, cauliflower. Walmart, again, there's a trend. Albert's Organics, so there's a grocery store that supposedly focuses on only organics, and there's a recall. They should have stricter guidelines. So, do you really know what's in your grocery cart? Are we looking at labels, people? Sprouts. Those can be grown in a jar. It's just astounding at how our food industry is so unsafe. I am so happy that I have 9 towers in my basement, and I'm looking forward to doing some soil-based gardening in my backyard in a few months. So yeah, we got more. Fresh vegetables, green beans, zucchini, cilantro, bell peppers. Walmart. I think that they need to go back to the drawing board and really look at how their distribution is dealing with their food. So the last one is the kicker. Now listen, we all imbibe a little bit into McDonald's. It's not healthy for us as Americans and other places in the world, and we know this, and they know it. But then there's the double whammy. This was in the news. The quarter pounder with cheese. Yeah, cheese. And now they added raw onions to it, and it got recalled. So if they're not trying to kill you with their food, they're going to kill you with the raw onions. So again, just please, people, read the labels and be very wary of what you're putting in your grocery cart. So, okay, on to happier notes. Let's find happiness, find a silver lining, and move on. All right. So if you guys haven't watched my video, Clone It Like Kevin, you need to. After the podcast, you need to check it out. And here's why. All right. So Kevin from Epic Garden, again, I want to give you a little credit for letting me use a snippet of your video. His video was done in 2019, and he purchased a hydroponic aeroponic system. It's kind of like a looks like a box. And if you can go and watch his video and see the whole detail of it. But we know as hydroponic and aeroponic tower gardeners, you don't really need that. So what I did was I took part of his 2019 video and I brought it to 2025. And I gave you guys a workaround. So I don't want to ruin it, but I want to share just my experience with the tomatoes. So we have everything as tower gardeners in our nurseries already to actually complete this. So basically what I did was I took snippets, and you all know that I have a tomato tower, and it's full of tomatoes, and I'm harvesting off of it every day, but eventually it's going to burn out and going to go to seed and just stop producing. And it's actually, I don't see a lot of flowers right now. So what I decided to do was clone and propagate what I have. So I took a bunch off and put them in my nursery, and I used my own Rockwool, and I used the Tower Garden Rockwool. And what I did was I did it in a way that was made the stem, actually it would go into the Rockwool, and I don't want to spoil it because I really want you guys to go watch that video. And I put it back into the grow pots and left it into the nursery for about a week. And what it did was it actually started to grow roots, as you can see here in the pictures on my right. And they started to grow from the top of the rock wall, and they horizontally went out and then started to go down to the bottom. And it happened really, really fast. I had some that were growing roots within a week. Now, if you've ever grown tomato seeds, you know, as gardeners, it takes a long time. So when I first started my tomato tower, it took forever. It had to have been 4, maybe even 6 weeks before I had viable seedlings. And then I remember putting them in the tower. And if you watch any of my earlier videos on this, I think I had to pull half of them back out because they weren't having it. They all just like wilted. So I had to pull them back out, put them back into the grow pots, put them back in the nursery on the warming mat for at least another week. And then I slowly started to transfer them back to the tower. But by doing the proper the cloning and the propagation, it cut that time completely down. I had roots within a week, and as of today, when I checked it, I clipped off any little buds, and you'll see this in the video because I wanted it solely to focus on growing roots. As of this morning, I can actually see that those little buds have grown back, and there's one of them that's ready to actually flower again. So I'm like, I think I actually might clip it just because I want the root system to get a little bit stronger before it starts to fruit. So yes, I will probably do that this afternoon. So I cut the time in half in their growing. And the one that I did in the video as a demonstration, that never even went into the nursery. I put that directly into the tower, and I'm happy to report it's fine. There was no wilting, and I could actually see little tiny roots coming from the top of the stem. So the top of the stem to the bottom of the rock wall, there's a term called podotendency. And what it does is it just, wherever that water is touching that stem, it's growing. So check out that video. And if you have, even just one tower and you have the tomato that you like, because these are the cherry tomatoes. If you want to go to the Tower Gardening madeeasy.com and go in my seed section, they're right there. And those are the seeds. If you don't have any need to start them, then it's going to take a little time. But once you have them in your tower, you never have to go back to the seeds. You can directly go into the cloning uh, and just take a couple clippings right off of what you have and then put it into the rock web by watching this video and put it right back into your tower and start a new plant. So it's really going to save you a lot of time and energy and get you back in the growing phase of getting tomatoes full time. So be sure to check out that video. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, so I loved this little segment. So someone posts, help, I don't understand why everything I grow tastes bitter. I can't be the only one. I grow indoors and I've tried, starting over 3 times. Well, let me just stop you there. Your vegetables, or let me just back up here for a quick second here. Our taste buds are groomed, would be a good word, to grocery store produce, which sometimes can be really tasteless because it's just mass produced. And again, I explained earlier about how it's grown, packed, shipped, warehoused, picked up, and then hit your grocery stores. There's no taste. So I'll use the celery as an example. The celery that I have downstairs on my tower, I harvest that a couple times a week, put it into salads, egg salads, regular salads. And what I have found is it is really, really flavorful. The celery that you buy in the grocery store does not have a lot of flavor. It has crunch and it has a lot of water fill, and it's still really good for you, but doesn't have a lot of taste. So here in the Northeast, in the middle of the winter when we don't have local tomatoes, they're coming from grow houses in Canada and other warmer areas of the United States in the world. And they're just mass produced. So those tomatoes just don't have a lot of flavor. But the ones that I pull off my tower, oh my God, it's like little slices of heaven, like little pieces of candy. And I've been putting them in salads and making sauces, and they're delicious. So I think what's going to happen is your taste buds over time will become accustomed to your tower vegetables. Now, lettuce, I'll use arugula as an example. I just grew that for the first time. I've been growing butter because I just really like it, and it's soft. It's got a lot of, it's very, for me, it's flavorful. But the arugula that I grew that I've been harvesting lately, I said to my husband, it really has an interesting taste. It really tastes like arugula and it's strong. So I was really happy about that. So again, play around with the different lettuces, play around with the different vegetables, and your taste buds will get accustomed to it. The other thing I will say is I know kids are very picky when it comes to vegetables. I'm not promoting this. I've never read it, but I've only heard about it. So Jerry Seinfeld's wife, I think her name is Jessica, she wrote a book, and it was strictly about getting your kids to eat vegetables. And she had a sneaky way of doing it. So she would take broccoli and she would put it into like a blender, and she'd blenderize it, and then she would sneak it into like tomato sauce. So she had all of these different ways to sneak it into their food to make sure that they were properly fed. So pick up that book, or maybe just check it out on Amazon and just read the reviews, or maybe there's a snippet that you can take a peek at. But you could also do that for your own food. So maybe you throw it into a sauce and add a little more, just a splash of butter, a splash of cheese that just mellows out that taste. But I don't really think it's nutrients, and I definitely don't think it's your pH. It's just your taste buds are groomed to grocery store bland vegetables. So give it a little time, okay? So let's go ahead and move on. All right. So I reached out to Living More, and I asked permission to make sure it was okay to use her picture and her her farmer's market. So this is the first one that I've ever seen. It looks like she has a tower farm, which is amazing. And then she goes to, so if you live in these areas, make sure you visit. One is Norfolk, Virginia, and the other one is Eddington, North Carolina. So if you're in those areas, make sure you go and you visit. So she's down there first and third and fifth Saturdays of the month of November through March, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can read this. You can pause it and read it. but it looks like she grows a lot of greens. In the pictures it shows a lettuce, but I bet you she probably does kale. She probably does, all of your leafy greens, because those are super, super easy to grow and they grow super fast on your tower. So please go visit and, shop local, shop often, and be healthy, would be my advice. Our farmer markets here are going to start to open up in the spring. We've got one here in Newport that's over on America's Cup, and it's kind of a whole couple blocks, and they put bunches of tables and tents, and all of the local farmers around here go and they sell their produce, baked goods, local honey. So I will say this: if you have allergies, um, as a nutritionist, I can say buy some local honey from where you live. It's just a little bit in your tea in the morning will help subside any of that pollen that's coming out right now. But you got to get it from a local farm, not a supermarket or Whole Foods. It needs to be from a local farm, from local bees. So, but definitely check her out, and I wish her the best of luck this season. I hope she does really, really well. And I'm going to try to Google around here to see if anyone has a tower farm that they're going to be doing. And who knows, maybe I'll do it. I've got 9 towers, but there's all kinds of stuff on there, so I'd have to probably get another space just to do the greens. But I do love my greens. So, buy local, buy often, and be healthy would be my my advice here. So let's go ahead and move on. I love this next segment. I got a frog in the tub. All right. So obviously, this is somebody who has their towers outside, and she put this out there. I went to check the water level and discovered a frog in the tub. Do I need to empty and scrub? Do I need to be concerned with germs and disease being transferred to plants through the water? The answer is no. But I do love the comment down below where it just says, as a gardener, a soil gardener, there's frogs, there's all kinds of stuff that are out there. And here's a quick story. So when I lived up in Massachusetts, I had a kind of a raised bed, and we had a fenced-in yard because we lived on the edge of a conservatory land. And we used to have these really big frogs. They would come through the fence, and I don't know why. There was really nothing there. And they would go in my hose where it was kind of in a container wrapped, and they would live in there because I think the hose dripped, so it was safe for them, and it was wet. And because we were kind of in the country, we had a lot of mosquitoes. So not only do we have coyotes and frogs and snakes, we were on the edge of a conservatory land. So as you can imagine, there was all kinds of stuff there. And then my neighbor behind us had this barn on his land. And because our water table was so high, I think that's where the frogs were coming through. So I'd have to take the frogs and literally squeeze their little chunky butts through the fence because I didn't want my dogs to eat them. So they'd be out there, and I have to pick them up and squeeze them through there. So you don't have to scrub the tub. Just, if you want to throw a little hydrogen peroxide in there, that's totally fine. But ask yourself this: how did he get there? My guess is you didn't have a net pot in the tower. Um, and when you think about the reservoirs, we've got the roots that are growing in the reservoir. It's raining if you're outdoors. I want to say it's maybe every 15 to 30 minutes. It's the zero setting on your timer versus every 45 if you're indoors. So he's got the perfect condo. He's safe. He's got a pond of water. He can hang in the roots. He can nibble on the roots for food. And then he's getting showered, every half an hour. And you're outdoors, so I'm sure there's little bugs and things that he could snack on. But if you didn't have a net pot, I bet you that's how he got in. And if you did, then he probably got in there when he was super little and squeezed through the net pot and then discovered this perfect condo and decided this was, the ecosystem for him. So scope him out and put him into your soil-based garden or put him outside of where you are. And it's just part of our ecosystem. So we just have to coexist together and keep them out of the reservoirs. But that really is a perfect habitat when you think about it. So we'll go ahead and move on and say goodbye to the frog. Bye, Mr. Froggy. All right, so I'm just gonna pause this for a quick second. This segment is about self-pollination, and it's based on zucchini plants. Now, we both know zucchini and summer squash have really big flowers, and if you're gardening indoors like I am, I do not have bees downstairs. And this means that I need to get my paintbrushes that I purchased at Walmart. It's just a kid packet. There's different paintbrushes. Some are thick, some are thin, some are wide, some are flat. Find one that works well with scooping out that pollen on the stem on the inside, and then you're transferring it to the female. But this video is going to show you something that I've been doing. So we'll go ahead and watch just a little bit of a snippet here. There we go. I'm actually going to just back this up a little bit. Okay. So this is the female, and this is the male. And let me just pause it. So if you have a lot of male flowers, what she's holding is the male flower, you can go ahead and pick it from the plant and do exactly what she's doing. Now, if you only have a couple blooms, I don't recommend this method. I recommend getting in there and grabbing the pollen the best that you can with your paintbrush and then transferring it to the female. And she's going to go in and she's going to insert kind of side to side and get the pollen that way. But you want to spread that pollen around if you only have a few flowers. So don't pick it. But if you do, this is the best method. So let me go ahead and play this a little bit more. Okay, see how she's rubbing side to side? All right, so I'm going to pause it again. Now what I do, let me just back up just a smidge. And I want to pause it, right? Okay, it's fine. So what I do is I take that male and I insert it into the female and then take the paintbrush with my other hand and then I scoop the pollen into the insert and then around. And then what I'll do is, because I have so many blooms everywhere, because I've got them on a couple towers, is I break off that male part and I leave it inserted into the female. Now, within 24 to 48 hours, the flower, what it will do is close up, and that's perfectly normal. And then I twist the ends a little bit once it does close, and then you just have to wait. You got to wait a few days to see what's going to happen. You keep looking at the summer squash or the zucchini because it will instantly start to grow. You'll start to really see it get engorged, and that's when you know it's pollinated. Or it will do nothing, and you'll just have to wait till it browns, and then you can just pick the whole thing off. But don't pick it too soon. Really, just kind of give it a week or two to see what happens. But let's watch the rest of this. Okay, so she's showing you the male. Her plant looks very, very healthy, by the way. And then she just gets in there. Okay, see, that's the probe that I would leave. I would pick off with my finger. There you go. And then I would insert it right into that center. And I would put a little more pollen personally, but she's in a tower. I can see the wheel like right there. But if you're outdoors, the bees will kind of do it, but it's better just to do both. Let the bees do their thing, but also get in there with the paintbrush and help the self-pollination. So this was a really good explanation of how to do this, and be sure to save it. So let's go ahead and move on. All right, I love this comment. Anyone has this problem or solution. The lamp is fitting so snug into the shower cap that I had to call in a strong male to help separate them. Any help appreciated. All right, so I'm gonna just explain this in two parts. So in around 2020, there was I won't say a model change of the towers, but I think they redid the lights. So one of my towers, pre-loved one, I think it's the one that the watermelon's growing on, that light set, the long light part is very, very loose. So one thing that Tower Garden did was I think they took the coils and they made them much stiffer. So any tower, I think probably after that, we'll call them tentacles. The tentacles are much tighter. But what they also did is I think they reconfigured the base of the light that fits into the shower cap. Now, not to mention that these lights are extremely heavy. But remember, our towers, they're tall. So If you have an extension kit or a baby green kit, your tower is now going to be probably close to 6 feet tall. And I'm 5'4", so I have to get on a ladder and I have to really just get up there and shimmy it. And I really should call for my husband to get help, but I don't. I just kind of figure it out. But for some people, I strongly suggest calling a friend because the caps are very tight. And if you can't get it off, um, you have one person holding it. And then what I would do is get a screwdriver and a cloth because you don't want to damage or crack that plastic because the lights fit into the shower cap and it's super snug. And you're keeping the water contained in that shower cap. You don't want it cascading out. So that's one reason why it's extra snug. But take the flathead screwdriver with a cloth and just slightly pry it. And then as you lift it, move it to the side, just on the shower cap, and then get off the ladder. Position yourself that you've got it snug, and the two of you then move it because the tentacles are very, very long, and you don't want that slamming into walls or things that you have in your room because potentially you will break it. And then you'll be making a phone call to Tower Garden going, how do I replace this? And then the next thing is getting those lights off. I don't know if when you put your tower together, those lights were very difficult to clip together. So, and they're even more difficult to unclip them. So just be really, really careful with your tops and really just have two people do it and really be safe on that ladder because once it comes off, you underestimate how heavy it is. So safety for people and just please call a friend. So we'll go ahead. All right, so I love this one, and I'm going to be doing a video on this very soon where I really take a look at two different Rockwool companies, and I'm really going to give you a solid review on it. Not all Rockwool is created equally, and here's why. Some Rockwool have smaller seed pods and bigger seed pods. And what do I mean by this? The top of the Rockwool either is teeny tiny, move my hand, there we go, on the camera, or it's just a little bit bigger. And some Rockwool with a smaller seed pod is meant for a smaller seed. And the bigger Rockwool with the larger opening is meant for bigger seeds. So for instance, Tower Garden has the grow port in the Rockwool that's just a little bit bigger, and they're phenomenal for big seeds like beans, melons, like a summer squash, anything that almost looks like a sunflower seed. That's perfect. You put that in there, maybe cut the tip, put it in there, put a splash of vermiculite, and then right into your grow pots under the lights and on the warming mat. Now, other Rockwool has a smaller seed pod, and those are really good for granular type seeds. So think of like a strawberry seed. A celery is really small, or any seed that looks like a grain of sand. Those are perfect because you pop them in there. Even lettuce would be another good one. And you don't even need the vermiculite. I would just leave it alone because those seeds are so small that when you put the vermiculite on top, it shadows them and then it can't see the light. So it's just moist. Now, the other thing between the two Rockwools is one versus the other is a little more resistant to algae. Now, I'm going to get into that a little bit more in my video, but I like both for different reasons. But they have different properties and how they're made up, and there's pros and cons to both. So I don't want to ruin it. I'll be making that video very, very shortly. It'll be kind of in this format where I go through cost, the grow ports, even how it breaks apart, how it holds up in the tower. So be sure to stay tuned for that video because it really is informative. They both serve their own purpose and they each are okay, but I prefer one over the other. So I'll release that video very, very soon. Okay. Do I keep these on the vine until they turn red? The answer is yes. So I have a whole tower downstairs devoted to peppers. And at first, when they were all green, I was like, am I going to end up with a tower full of green peppers? And I was like, I can't. I don't like green peppers. I'm literally going to be cutting them all off and giving them to my neighbors, family, and friends. But then I really realized that one day I looked over and I was like, I saw a stripe of orange. So now they're in the process of turning all orange. I did put some yellow on this tower, but I don't see any yellow. But I will take all of the orange, not a problem. So you just need to be patient. So if you're growing indoors, it's probably going to take a little bit longer. If you're growing outdoors, it will happen in time. But what I will say, if they're on a tower, rotate that tower to where the sun is, and they will ripen just a little bit faster. So my advice is just be patient. They will turn, and it's kind of cool to watch them. They don't just turn. They like there's a stripe one day, and then there's two stripes the next. Some do it in blotches, and then some just appear the color. So it really depends on the pepper that you're growing, and whether you're soil based and or on the tower. So just be patient, and it's really kind of a cool process. And when my seed cam arrives, I'm probably going to be doing um, a time lapse video actually on the color change because it takes forever, and it would be really cool to see the video speed up and see how long it takes, because I still have some that are there. They're mostly green. So it takes a few weeks. So just be patient with your peppers and they will turn. Let's move on.
variety. This one I'm going to
Right,
take
so I'm
down
going to
pretty.
pause this and just give a little credit. So this again is Kevin from Epic Gardening, and this is his explanation. And again, this is a soil base, but the principle of this of maximize harvesting lettuce with a cut and come method. And again, I'll be doing a video on this off of the tower. And what he's explaining is when you harvest things off your tower, whether it's lettuce, whether it's celery, things that can regrow. Obviously, your summer squash, your zucchini, your melons, things like that. Once you pull it and pick it, that's it. But lettuce, anything green, your kales, your spinach, all of that can be regrown. So there's a special way of doing it. This specific method called cut and come again. And he explains it perfectly. But again, this is soil based, so it'll be a little bit different when we get to the towers. So let me just go ahead and back this up so we can just watch it. And again, thank you very much, Kevin from Epic Gardens.
One I'm going to take down pretty considerably just to show you a peek at what the inside really looks like. Because if you do damage the crown, then your plant is done for good. And so you really want to avoid that. You're seeing me take away these outside leaves. And look, there's just very small versions of those leaves in here. So if we dig in, we can see the future of this plant, basically. These are 4, 5, maybe even 6.
Okay, so I'm going to just pause right here. This is what I was talking about. So you take the outer edges of your plant, your lettuce, your celery, any of the big greens, and you want to leave that crown. And it will then again, it will push out and will continue to grow through the center. So he did a great explanation in the soil, and the tower is basically the same. I do something a little bit different with my lettuce. Um, because I have so many towers and I have so many baby green ports, I tend to let my lettuce get only so big because what will happen is inevitably it will cover, it will start to canopy what's underneath. And so I just kind of pull out the whole section and cut off the rock wall and use that as my head of lettuce. And so I'm constantly rotating and growing because you could fill up your little piece, your rock wall with seeds. And I didn't say that in the video prior, but the little seeds you want to definitely fill up that port. And the big seeds, you only need one. So with the lettuce, you just fill it to the brim, put it into your warming mat and under the lights, and literally you're going to have lettuce in probably 4 or 5 days that you pop into the tower, and within less than 2 weeks, you will have a small head of something. So with the lettuce seeds, be generous. Don't just put one or two. Really just fill it, and then as it grows, you can weed it out a little bit so it gets a little bit bigger and it's not, fighting each other. So yeah, go ahead and fill it to the brim. But I love his explanation. So I just want to go back just a little bit so you guys can see when he cuts it. So here we go.
Look, there's just very small versions of those leaves in here. So if we dig in, we can see the future of this plant, basically. These are 4, 5, maybe even 6 little leaves that are.
Okay. All right. So that was a good explanation. And stay tuned for the video that off the towers that I'll do. So we'll go ahead and move on. All right, so this is a question that I think a lot of people ask, and it really depends on where you are. If you're growing indoors and you're not dealing with spider mites or aphids, I'm going to just put that over here on the side for a quick second. And you've got a healthy tower that you're constantly topping off your water, and you're growing a healthy tower of plants. I would say maybe once a year, maybe a little bit less. Some people say, oh, every 3 to 4 months. You really don't need to. If your basin is healthy and you're constantly putting water and checking your nutrients and checking your pH, maybe 6 months if you really want to. Now, if you're indoors and you have houseplants, which I've talked about in another video, I strongly suggest, especially if it's cold out and your no windows are open, take your houseplants away from your towers because you have things that will grow in the soil. And if that something grows and you have, like, say, spider mites, they are going to your tower and they are going to devour it. And the same thing with the aphids. If that happens, you have to take everything out of your tower. You have to empty the water. You have to clean everything, and I mean sterilize it. I was talking to someone this morning about this, and they're like, "I'm looking for an organics, cleaner." I said, honestly, get a bottle of Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap, and if you're going to clean it with that because that peppermint smell it repels anything. I've used it on various things. I love that soap. When you read the label, it's got a billion things you can use it for. So that is the most organic that you can get. So I highly recommend using that as a cleaner. But if you're outdoors, you definitely want to be cleaning those towers. I would say 4 months, 5 months. If you start to see nutrient buildup or excessive algae, then it's time. It's time to rotate that tower. It's time to clean it. I would even put it into the sun, let it just dry off, and then put it back together. Obviously, at that point, you've got some seedlings in your nursery. Pop those back in there, and then get their water started and start growing again. So it really depends on what you're doing. Even if you're indoors and you start to see that buildup, then it might be time to give it a clean. But keep the bottom top of your reservoir clean. If you've watched any of my videos or you look at my grow room, I really try to keep it super, super clean to avoid having to do these water changes frequently because it's a bigger hassle when you're indoors than you are outdoors. So have caution. And I obviously don't want any pests down there, so I have no house plants down there. And I'm very, very careful about what I bring downstairs into the grow room. So yes, just take a look at your towers and keep them healthy. So that should answer that question. Dr. Bronner's, that's the workaround there. I love that stuff. So here we go. Okay, so that concludes our podcast for this week. And, if you watch this live yesterday, today is Thursday, April 17th, I apologize. There was a little snafu with the audio, which then I had to re-record this. And then I'm going to go ahead and post it. So it'll actually look like a video and not a live, but it will be in the podcast section. So I much apologize for that. Did not know what was going on until the very end, until I heard it and go, it's through the entire video. Something happened with the platform. I'm not quite sure. I think it was when the window on the third reel went to the second. So something happened. So my apologies. But in any case, I hope you enjoyed this. I want you to join me live for next Wednesday that we will not have a audio issue. That has been corrected. And, definitely stay tuned. Keep up with the videos. I'm going to be doing the video on the Rockwool. I'm going to be doing one on the cut and come method again. That'll be 2 videos that I'm working on, and I'll go ahead and post those as soon as I possibly can. But thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned a lot, and I love the comment about the frog. It's just our ecosystem. Let them go. Let them be free. So we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much.